Okay. Control 7. We're now back in perspective view. And we've got parts of our model spread out all over the place. So I'm going to go to each of these layers, and I'm going to hit move, and move my windows, my 6 lights, and my rectangular ports, and then the hull, all move to layer 1. Okay, so everything's in layer 1 except for lights and cameras. And we can rotate around and we can see that everything is exactly where we left it. All right, Z. Now, these are actually slightly more complex than they look, these triangular objects here. They're really rectangles, if you'll notice. And right here on the bottom of them is actually, this is rounded. Hang on one second. I have quite a few reference images, and we'll start at some of the oldest here. Here is a shot from the bottom up. I think this is one of Chris Trice's. He did an exquisite job. This was just after the 11-foot Enterprise model was delivered to the Smithsonian originally, and they tried to do some touch-up work. They got rid of actually an awful lot of the weathering detail and so on. They didn't touch the top of the saucer, but the bottom of the saucer is good enough. You can actually see that our model closely resembles this. They painted over a window here, but we've got all these windows. We left where we're going to add signage. We're going to add textures with letters on them, textures out here, although we could model these registries, which I quite frequently do. And these are actually 3D items. Hard to tell here, but at least you can tell that this is kind of rounded. Sorry about that. I'm still recovering from my cold. I'm going to run through some other images. It's easier to tell that this is a 3D object here, but And you can tell here, light is reflecting off of this. And you can start to see that this in itself actually isn't even a straight line. It's rounded. But let's go here. You can actually see the edge of the, well, I'm going to call it a triangle, even though it's a quadrilateral. You can see the edge here and here. So this is a three-dimensional object in and of itself. And sitting on top of it at the end, matching this curved back here is, well, it's like a bent hot dog, really. You can see that that stands out much more than the other objects. I've also seen it placed just south of the triangle, but as you can see on these images, it actually sits right on the back edge. So we're going to try and duplicate that and duplicate this this interestingly curved quadrilateral and see if we can make that in Blender. Okay. So here we are back. If we go to Z, you'll see that this closely resembles this. So we're doing okay. We've got the windows in pretty much the right places, pretty much the right sizes. We just need the triangles, some textures, and some signage. All right. Z to go back. I'm going to hit A to deselect everything. So if I hit A again, I would select everything. I don't want that. I want everything deselected. And I want to add a cube. A cube is the simplest way of doing this. So Shift A, Mesh, Cube. And if your 3D cursor is not in the center of the model, Shift S and select cursor to center. Now, what I want in the first place is I'm not going to rotate everything all around. Eventually, I am going to have to rotate this cube. We're going to make it a plug, kind of like we did with the windows and ports. So I'm going to grab this X, move it out here so it's kind of centered right around here. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to scale. I want to change this 3D center to bounding box. Scale this down so that the bottom comes to right between these two circles, just like that. That's not bad. I'm going to scale that down just a tiny bit more so it comes right off the edge there. All right, that's nice. Now, we want the front of the cube to go between these two. And it does, but not perfectly. So I'm going to hit Tab, A, to deselect all the vertices, B, and select the front of the cube. Now, all that really matters is the center bit here. So I'm going to pull this forward until it's kind of halfway between, just like halfway between here. Just like this is closer to the back circle here. All right, and I'm going to hit A, and then A again to select all the vertices. And this time, bounding box stays on. We're going to scale, but we're going to scale only in this direction. We're going to scale only in the Y direction. So scale Y. Pardon me. I want to make it about as wide as here. It's probably just a little too wide. Scale Y, maybe about like that. Okay, cool. A to deselect, B to just select the front, and the front comes down really small. So scale Y, and we're going to bring this down about like that. We want it to be the scale Y. We want it to match the outside length of this quadrilateral here. So I'm going to A to deselect everything, A to select the whole, every vertex, Tab out of it, and then we're going to change this centering to 3D cursor, and we're going to rotate. All right, not too shabby. The bottom is about right, but the top isn't thin enough. So I'm going to go Tab, deselect everything, B to select just the top, scale Y, and let's try that. Tab, rotate. Not too bad. Let's rotate in here. By the way, when I am setting that back to center, what I do is I right mouse click instead of left mouse click. Right mouse click says, oh, he doesn't want it there, and it takes it right back to its original position. So we're going to rotate, and I guess we could make the top still a little thinner. So scale Y. Okay, Tab, rotate. And that's just gosh darn near perfect. Control Z. Because we're going to do it just a tad more. Scale Y. Okay. Tab, rotate. And I think that's going to do it for our purposes. Okay, cool. So now, let's go to 1. And our scale, top to bottom, Z, is huge. So we're going to scale Z only. Oh, I'll tell you what. Let's take it off of the center cursor and make it bounding box. Scale Z, just the cube. And then we're going to move it down. Now, all this has to be bigger than is this curve in here. So if I move this up, you can actually see I want it outside here and outside here. And that's actually real easy. So I can, whoops. Yeah, okay, cool. So I can scale Z a little more. Not too much more. Okay, cool. So I'm outside this edge. I'm outside this edge. I'm outside this edge just barely. Let's go take a look and confirm. Yes, I'm definitely outside of it. Okay, so now Control 7, Z. All right, our cube, which has now been changed, is a different shade than our hull with a simple texture. We're going to do what we did before. I'm going to grab the hull, Shift D. Okay, so now I've got a copy of the hull. We're going to go to modifiers. We're going to add a modifier, Boolean, and this time we want intersect. So we're going to grab the selector, and we're going to grab this cube, and we're going to hit apply. All right, now, the cube is still there, but what should be underneath it, let's grab the cube. We're going to move it to a different, say, right now we're just going to move it to number 2 slot. We're going to go to Z, and guess what we have here? We have a 3D triangle, so to speak, Control 7. All right. What I want to do is I want to go over to Textures. I want to get rid of the hull gray. And we're going to click on New. It's just going to be a temporary, so we're going to call it Temp Triangle. Okay, cool. Now, right now it's white. I don't want white. So let's click on the color selector here. We'll make it kind of just a medium gray. Maybe throw a little tiny bit of blue at it. Okay, cool. And for our viewport color, we're going to pick the selector, and pick the color here so that it looks just like that. Okay, cool. Now if we go to Z, we're going to get this weird meshy effect. Here's why. We've got two objects in exactly the same spot. They have exactly the same curves. They are in exactly the same place, point for point, and the program doesn't know what to do with it. So what we want to do is we want to go to 1, Z, and we're going to zoom in here. So now, this triangle is the same thickness as the hull thickness. So what we're going to do is we're going to, well, what the heck, doesn't matter where. We're going to zoom in where we can see triangle and hull. So this yellow here is both triangle and hull. So I'm going to grab Z, and we're going to move this down so that the top line of the triangle meets the bottom line of the hull. That's it. All right, so now Control 7, Z, and now we've got a 3D triangle that's very thin. I'm going to hit A. It has edges on it, but it could be confused with just a texture. All right, so now I'm going to select it again, Shift D. Let's go to Z so we can see through it. Because we hit Shift D, we've got two of these triangles now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and figure out what angle that is. Looks like about 48 degrees. So I'm going to rotate. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. I should make sure that this is not on bounding box, but 3D cursor. Let's rotate 48. Okay, not quite. So rotate 53. No. Rotate 56. Rotate 58. Wow. Rotate 60. Just too much. Rotate 59. Looks like rotate 59.5. Almost. Rotate 59.7. I think that's as good as that gets. Okay, we're going to pick our other one. Rotate negative 59.7. Okay. Go back to Z. A to deselect everything. And we have our two triangles, which we will want to texture later. So that we can give them that interesting two-tone, and believe it or not, there's like a gradation there. It's hard to see. It may actually it's much easier to see here where this looks brighter in the center and darker out towards the edges. So we're going to texture that part of it. But the next thing is to make the rounded hot dog shape, as it were. We're going to model half of it, and then we're going to mirror it. So let's go back to our model. I'm actually going to make a third of these windows. I'm going to rotate 59.7, I think it was. Good. Put that back in the center. That's a lot easier to work with. All right, cool. Now, we need a circle, a hot dog, a sphere, actually. And we've got our 3D cursor still in the center, but if it isn't, Shift-S, cursor to center. Okay, cool. We're going to Shift-A, add a mesh, and we want a UV sphere. Now, before we move anything, pardon me, we want to make sure that we can cut this sphere in half. We can. Because it's going to be such a small object that never had a close-up, unless you want to make a close-up, we are going to leave it fairly small with only 32 segments and 16 rings. I see no reason to go much more than that. All right, so what we're going to do is before we even reduce this, we're going to hit Tab, A. So now we're in edit mode, A, and we're going to delete half of the vertices. So I'm going to put my cursor right up next to, but to the left of the center line, B. Highlight all of these, and X vertices, they are now gone. We are left with half a sphere. If we go to 1, we can do the same. I'm going to go just above the center line mark, B, left click, drag, highlight all those vertices, X, delete the vertices. We are now left with 1/4 of the sphere. I'm going to hit Tab. We are now in object mode. I'm going to scale this, well, Control 7. I'm going to scale this way down. Scale. Beep. Now that's not even as small as we're going to go. See, we really want to be as thin as that. So I'm going to rotate 90 degrees. I'm going to grab this and move it out here. Place it right about where that thing occurs. Somewhere near there. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale it down. What the heck? Tell you what. Let's grab this X and put it just on the outside of our, well, right on our triangle, right on the edge. Okay. We're going to scale. Don't want to scale it to the center. I want to scale it via bounding box now that we've moved it. So scale. Boop, about like that, maybe a little more. Okay, cool. So it's not very big. This here is about the right size, and that's about the same size as this. Just about. So we'll probably move it about like that. All right, cool. Now, this is going to be interesting to explain. I'm going to rotate this, but I'm going to rotate it using the 3D cursor. And because my circle, the quarter of sphere that's left is facing port, I'm going to rotate this to the port. And I'm going to line it up pretty much with the edge of that triangle. It can be a little larger. You don't want it to be smaller. So that's fine. All right. Now, so this is lined up in the correct line. We're going to go to Tab. Now, if I rotate around this here, matter of fact, I'm going to go to Z. Oh, tell you what, 1 first. Tab. We're going to grab Z, and we're going to bring this down below the hull, just for now. Later on, we'll have it intersect. But right now, Control 7, Z, and we see where this is. Now, we could also make this smooth and so on. I'm not going to bother with it yet. I'm going to rotate around until we see this like eggshell. All right, I'm going to tab into it. We've not given it any thickness yet. And I only want to select the vertices around this inner edge. So I'm going to pick one. What was it? Alt? Yeah, it's Alt. Idiot. Hit one, Alt, and pick the next one in line, and we get all the verts selected. If I go to Control 7, now we only have that one edge, so to speak. Now, believe it or not, what we want to do is we want to spin this. Now, last time we spun it, we spun the saucer hull 180 degrees with 100 of these things. We don't want that. We want far fewer. So we don't want 180 degrees. As a matter of fact, we want something like -5 degrees, and we only want, say, 10 steps or so. All right, so that's not quite right. We need a little more than -5 degrees. Let's try -6. And that's actually too much. So, -5.5. Oh, so close. -5.4. Looks like -5.45. Hot diggity dog. That looks like it's lined up perfectly with the center. It goes out just beyond the edge of this triangle. That's perfectly fine. We're going to... now, that edge is still selected. All the verts are still selected. So we're going to Shift-S, cursor to selected, and now we've got our 3D cursor right in the middle of all of those verts. Control 7. Cool. A and A to select all of the verts, and then guess what? We're going to go over here to add modifier. We're going to add a mirror modifier. Right now, X is here because guess where our setter is. So I'm going to turn that off. Tab to get out of it, and now it's in object mode. Shift, Control, Alt, C. Origin to 3D cursor. So because we had the cursor aligned at the center of all these verts, now the center of the object is in exactly the same space as the 3D cursor. So let's go back, tab, add modifier, mirror, almost there. All right. Looks like a rotation problem. I don't know how to fix that. So what? There's a couple of different ways. Let me think about this for a minute. Didn't take too long. Okay. So the mirror hasn't been applied yet. It's not done yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate our already selected vertices. So R, and I'm going to rotate them away until it looks like these are pretty much lined. Oh, look at that. All right, so if we zoom in, we can actually see the bottoms. So I'm going to rotate some more until the two lines exactly overlap. Okay, cool. We're going to turn on clipping over here. And then we're going to tab out of this and hit apply. So now we've got a single object. Tab to select everything, and you can always A and A to make sure. I'm going to go to, where are we? Scroll down. Remove doubles. There were none to remove. We're going to go to Mesh, Normals, recalculate the outside, and then we're going to tab, and we're going to rotate just a little bit until this is about that looks about right. Okay, so now Z, not too shabby. We're going to hit smooth, And then we're going to go over to modifiers, and of course our favorite edge split, and apply. And what the heck? We'll go in and we will grab the same texture that we've got for the temporary triangle. Okay, cool. Now we're going to duplicate that. Oh, hang on. I'm going to delete that duplicate. Let's go back here. Z, 1, and we want this to come up and meet the hull, not the triangle. And then I'm going to Shift, Control, Alt, C. We're going to do origin to geometry. Oh, that's not working. Hang on, maybe it is working. It is not. Well, it is. It is because this is bent, so the actual center is here. All right, so if I go to 1, and, oh, I know what to do. Let's try this. Control 7, Tab, A, we're going to deselect everything. B, I'm going to grab this center set of vertices. Shift, S, cursor to selected. So let's go to 1. Now we've got the cursor inside the object and in between those center vertices. So Control 7. Now, Tab, Shift, Control, Alt, C, and we're going to pick origin to 3D cursor. Now it's right in the center where we want it. We're going to go to 1. Now that it's centered, we're going to rotate this object so that it is parallel to the ship's hull. Then we're going to grab this and we're simply going to move it straight up. Matter of fact, we can correct our rotation because it actually goes all the way out to here. And not too shabby. Okay, so Control 7, and we've got it at the bottom here. Let's go Z and take a quick tour. It looks good. It's in the right place. Control 7. And what was that? Like 49.74 or something like that. So Shift D to duplicate it. We're going to rotate off the 3D cursor. Rotate 47.9. Oh, that's not working. Why is it not 3D cursor? Yeah. Oh, because the 3D cursor is right in the center. So we want to move the 3D cursor. Shift S, cursor to center. Now rotate. What was it? 49. Oh, nope. Great. Rotate 57. Rotate 59.74. Cool. Rotate negative 59.74. Excellent. All right, and we can get rid of, select this extra triangle, X to delete it. We are left with a saucer with windows and ports cut out, lights cut out, top and bottom, glass in place that we can actually select. Alrighty. A to deselect everything. Take a quick tour around the hull, and we've got our triangles with those rounded, bent hot dogs, Control 7, Z, and they line up with Alan's plans very nicely. Basically, the modeling for the saucer is done. We've got textures left to do, and we've got to create the bridge, the BC deck, and the sensors on both top and bottom. That'll be our next lesson.